Top 10 Secrets and Mysteries. The human body. Some of the greatest mysteries we will ever encounter are related directly to ourselves. They take place literally within our reach, in our own bodies and minds. Yet despite our best efforts, we are still a long, long way from fully understanding them. In this episode, we will examine the most disturbing, unexplained mysteries from the world of medicine. Medical mysteries. 10. Mysterious mass hysteria. Mass hysteria is one of the unexplained mysteries of contemporary medicine. But how is it possible that it can afflict dozens or even hundreds of people at once? Such cases have appeared again and again throughout history. Many of them were described in detail. Whether the result was unusual behavior, insurmountable fear, or inexplicable pain, all these events had one common denominator. Their root cause was never discovered. Another school epidemic took place 20 years later in Jordan. Several students started feeling ill. They had trouble breathing, their heads hurt, and they felt nauseous. Shortly afterwards, other students started exhibiting similar symptoms, and soon almost the entire school was infected. The disease then returned in waves and kept reappearing until it affected almost 1,000 people, including several Israeli soldiers. The common denominator in all these cases seems to be that they usually took place during turbulent times, when people are under a lot of stress. The symptoms might therefore be a natural reaction of more sensitive individuals to increased mental strain. But how does it spread to other groups and communities? Are we so susceptible to suggestion that by merely seeing or hearing people behave in a certain way, we react similarly? Tree Man. Among the strange creatures in Tolkien's The Lord of the Rings are animate trees called Ents. However fantastic the idea of a talking, thinking tree might seem, it might be closer to reality than you think. People who suffer from the extremely rare skin disorder known as Tree Man syndrome sprout horn-like growths on their legs, hands, and faces. The name may sound poetic, but there's nothing beautiful about it. Visually and to touch, the strange growths resemble bark. They branch out, thicken, and spread over the body, growing into bizarre shapes that can weigh several kilograms. Very little is known about this disorder.
I have seen in my life. I don't think so that any other my colleague has seen this. Not only Bangladesh, even in the world. I don't know how much cured is there.
It's hereditary and is linked with a genetic mutation that makes the patient more susceptible to the human papillomavirus. The disease was brought to light by the high-profile case of Dede Koswara. In later stages, he was incapable of feeding himself, and the mere act of walking caused him pain. He had to give up his job as a carpenter. Dede underwent several extensive operations. The surgeons were faced with a difficult task: to determine exactly where the horn-like warts ended and where the patient's own healthy body tissue began. After a while, the warts came back, and with them further health complications. 6 years later, Dede Koswara succumbed to the freak disease. His was not the only case where treatment ultimately proved unsuccessful. The disease also returned in the case of Abba Banjadar from Bangladesh. Nevertheless, surgery is still the only viable solution. Will this rare syndrome remain one of the uninvestigated mysteries of medical science? 8. Longest survivals. In May 2008, Austria and all of Europe was shocked by a horrendous case that made even experienced police officers shudder. It came to light that for the past 25 years, Joseph Fritzl, a 73-year-old pensioner, had kept his own daughter prisoner in his cellar and had been regularly abusing her. Against her will, she bore him 7 children. Before they received help, they'd lived many years in a space of just a few meters square without natural light or access to medical help. Their gruesome story again raises the age-old question: what are the limits of human endurance? A well-known rule of thumb says that we can last 3 minutes without oxygen, 3 days without water, and 3 weeks without food. There have, however, been individuals who've managed to exceed these limits many times over. Mahatma Gandhi famously fasted for 21 days. The extraordinary story of a man who survived the longest recorded time without water also took place in Austria. In 1979, the young apprentice Andreas Mihabet witnessed a car accident and was placed in police custody. Due to a misunderstanding among the police officers, his cell was not opened until 18 days later, when a cleaner, noticing an unusual smell, decided to take a look. The young man was terribly emaciated and weak, but alive. What about breathing? After 3 minutes without oxygen, people like you and me would suffer brain damage. Some divers can remain underwater for over 15 minutes without oxygen equipment. The one-time record holder, Tom Sietas from Germany, set the bar at 22 minutes and 22 seconds.
25, that's the record, right?
It's always the beginning, when I'm a little bit worried, because you never know how much air you get inside, how you feel about the blood pressure and all that. So after the first 2 minutes, I felt quite confident.
When will we reach the limits of the possible? How much further can we push the boundaries of endurance, both physical and mental? 7. The secrets of hands. The papillary lines on the hands and feet are one of the many unsolved mysteries of the human body. For each person, they are absolutely unique and differ even between identical twins. We could therefore say that we leave our personal imprint on everything we touch. 2 like fingerprints would be found only once every 10 to the power of 48 years, wrote the Scientific American in 1911. Although fingerprints have been used for identifying people for the last 133 years, we are still no closer to understanding why nature gave us this uniquely personal gift. Fingerprints have served as individual signatures for many centuries. The same method of signing was used in ancient Babylon, Egypt, Assyria, and India. They must have known even then how unique fingerprints are.
We want to protect our privacy and also be able to make sure that we don't have fraudulent transactions. We'll see the use of biometrics in that area as well. Fine, but for a regular person, the opportunity cost of sitting down and trying to get around these devices is really not practical.
An even greater mystery are the lines and patterns on the human palm. Chiromancy, or palm reading as most people know it, was taught at German universities as late as the 17th century. According to chiromancers, Both our state of health and our spiritual development are written in our palms. The lines on our palms change with age, much like our lives. Contemporary science favours three main explanations for the existence of these unique lines and patterns. The first is related to tactile sensitivity. Tactile receptors located on the top of the papillary lines or ridges can increase the tension in the skin and thus dramatically improve our sense of touch. A second interpretation is that papillary lines could increase our hands' adhesiveness and so improve our grip. Nevertheless, all these are theories that have so far not been proven. 6. Astonishing mental disorders. In an organism as complicated and intricate as the human body, any deviation, however small, can result in fantastic and often frightening changes. Imagine you're standing in an art gallery, surrounded by hundreds of pictures that you've only ever seen in photographs online. The paintings are incomparably more vivid and beautiful than you could have imagined. And there are so many of them. Your head starts to spin, your heart starts pounding, your legs shake, you're on the point of fainting. No, you've not gone crazy. Your strange condition even has a name: Stendhal syndrome. Could it be that all these people were suffering from some form of attack due to their overexposure to art? Disturbing though it might sound, there are even more alarming forms of mental disorder. There are people who experience symptoms of various illnesses even though they're completely healthy. Sometimes, if their doctor tells them their suffering has no real cause, they feel the need to make the symptoms worse and actually do themselves physical harm. Those who suffer from Munchausen syndrome, as the disorder is known, don't do this consciously. There have been cases in which patients observe the illness in someone else rather than themselves, most often in their children. The parent then takes the child to various doctors, exaggerates or makes up symptoms. In the most serious cases, the parent will deliberately harm or abuse the child, say by giving them laxatives or depressants. This has sometimes even led to the child's death. These very rare clinical phenomena show how infinitely complicated and fragile our brain processes are. 5. Hidden and invisible. In the late 1990s, one mystery epidemic struck several villages in South Sudan. The disease affects almost exclusively children. Their heads start dropping to their chests as if they were suddenly incapable of holding them up. Sometimes their movements are so uncontrollable they fall down and hurt themselves. After a time, it becomes obvious that their physical and mental development has stopped. In clinical literature, the syndrome has been described as the nodding disease. Doctors were at a loss. Was the disease infectious? How was it transmitted? Could it have been caused by chemical weapons or infected monkey meat? Or even a curse? The afflicted communities had one thing in common. They were all close to a river or stream infected with a parasite that causes so-called river blindness. Can that be the connection? Among those who disagree, however, are people afflicted with a condition called morgellons, which only affects people in industrialized parts of the world. And according to scientists, it is characterized by one peculiar trait: it does not exist. Patients self-diagnose using the internet to identify their symptoms: sudden itching all over the body, almost as if something was crawling under their skin, open wounds that produce thin coloured threads. When they seek medical attention, the results are negative. The diagnosis? Delusional infestation, a mental disorder. The parasites are only present in the patient's minds. So, is this a kind of mass hysteria spread through the internet? One thing is for sure. Researchers are constantly studying new diseases and their causes. What will be next? 4. The Vampire Within. Teeth stained red, bloodshot eyes, receding gums, and sharp canine fangs. The skin is pale, and when exposed to the sun, it itches, burns, turns red, and blisters all over. Legends of undead vampires who rise from their graves to suck the blood of their neighbors, or werewolves who turn into wolves at night and feed on human flesh. In the past, the hysteria caused by such stories led people to dig up the dead and stab them in the heart with wooden stakes. In 1985, Dr. David Dolphin of the University of British Columbia came up with the theory that the inspiration for these legends could have been an unusual disorder called porphyria. The disorder, usually hereditary, impairs the function of enzymes involved in the synthesization of hemoglobin, the component of blood that makes it red. One of the results of this disorder is light sensitivity, including the horrendous skin reactions we just mentioned. After a time, the face can become so disfigured or covered with hair that the patient hardly looks human anymore, so it's no surprise that they'd prefer not to leave their house during the day. But where do the stories of blood-sucking come from? And why should werewolves viciously attack people and devour their bodies? Can it be attributed to simple human superstition, compounded by fear of the unknown? Or were those afflicted with porphyria truly so desperate that they tried to relieve their symptoms by ingesting blood? 3. Secrets of human memory. What is memory? How does the imagination work? Even though these questions were asked already by the ancient Greek philosophers, they still remain largely unanswered. Our onboard computer is composed of 100 billion nerve endings and billions of synapses, connections that transfer impulses between them. How are memories stored in this gigantic labyrinth?
Well, we don't know where memory resides. Maybe it's in the brain, maybe it's part of a physical aspect of ourselves. I kind of suspect that a lot of our personal experience is encoded physically in the brain and body.
Neuroscientists believe that when we remember something, particular cells activate in unison and create new connections. This connection can then be reused and strengthened or weakened. Memory is therefore a system of relationships or connections. How come we can remember trivial events from the distant past, but often can't recall things that happened more recently? One theory is that our memory is designed to create a depository of experience which we can utilize in dealing with future situations, like a general before a battle who draws up his troops in his mind and prepares his strategy. As new facts and factors appear, he adjusts the model. Is the purpose of the memory to provide material for such eventualities? 2. Giants and Dwarfs. It's the 10th of February, 1863. For over 2 years, a civil war has been ravaging the United States. But suddenly, another story grabs the headlines. Miss Lavinia Warren, is marrying General Tom Thumb. And what, you may ask, made the couple so famous? Their height. Both of them were less than 1 meter tall. Their rise to fame took place on B.T. Barnum's travelling show, which featured people with various physical disorders. Actors of exceptionally small or large stature in particular attracted crowds of curious spectators. Did it satisfy their desire to see something shocking, or were they simply fascinated that nature could produce such odd specimens? Today we know that these people suffered from growth disorders. One of the causes is the lack or excess of the growth hormone. This hormone is produced in the pituitary gland and stimulates the growth of human cells. Its absence or diminished function can cause dwarfism. Too much of it, on the other hand, causes overgrowth, a condition known as gigantism.
В связи с этим весом тела имею большие нагрузки на мышцы ног. Иногда это мешает при ходьбе. Ноги быстро устают. Я считаю это естественным процессом. Работаю над собой.
Today we know what causes these disorders. What hasn't changed, however, is our fascination with the people who suffer from them. The smallest woman in the world, Yoti Amj, has appeared on several TV shows and even starred in a horror movie. Such fame can also have positive results. After getting his name in the Guinness Book of Records, Sultan Kosen was able to afford treatment necessary to arrest his growth, which was putting a huge strain on his body. Alam Chana from Pakistan, who in the 1980s held the mantle of the tallest man in the world, made 10 times more in the circus than he would have through his family's traditional occupation. Most sufferers from dwarfism or gigantism do not desire fame, however. They just want to be treated the same as anyone else, instead of being stared at all the time. It seems we still have a compulsive fascination with whatever is peculiar, sensational, or shocking. Why? That is the real mystery. 1. Aging and immortality. At the moment, the only possible practical way to attain immortality is a technique we know mostly from sci-fi movies. Cryonics involves deep freezing your body and keeping it in hibernation until such time as a cure for your terminal disease is discovered, or until even the most optimistic estimate of life expectancy is exceeded. Is there an underlying medical cause that science may be able to identify? Is aging truly unavoidable? There's been much interest in the cases of several children who suffer from an extremely rare disorder, progeria. Bayezid Hossain from Bangladesh seems to have grown older by entire decades in his short life. At only 4 years old, his joints hurt and he has problems with his teeth.
Have you even seen a person like me?
Another victim of progeria, South African celebrity Ontlemetse Falatse, died shortly after her 18th birthday from lung failure. That was 4 years after doctors had predicted.
I want to be a psychologist when I grow up because I want people to know that I accept who I am so that they can accept who they are and so that they can see with me.
The cause? Genetic mutation. Does this disease really speed up the aging process? or merely have similar symptoms. We don't know. As yet, we have no cure for it. Just as we don't know whether we'll ever be able to reverse the process of aging or whether we are doomed to mortality.